This is an event that happened very recently, and it will probably be the single most terrifying experience in my entire life. I just graduated college in the Midwest and received an offer from a major bank in Charlotte, North Carolina. Plus, the most logical next step for me was to search for housing options in the Charlotte area. Just a couple days after graduation, my father and I flew to Charlotte, and we stayed in a hotel that was both near the airport and downtown Charlotte. It was an area that was in the midst of being gentrified, mixing homeless crackheads and young professionals all in one place. There were rundown stores and old ranch houses, but there was also newly built townhouses and a beautiful shopping center close by. While there were times that I felt unsafe in the area, it didn't seem like anything serious would happen other than the random harassment from the homeless that roamed the streets. The hotel was really nice, which was surprising for a building that had been there before the gentrification began. Breakfast was provided, the rooms were very clean, and the lobby had multiple places to relax or do work, while the hallways of the hotel definitely looked like they were from the back rooms. I felt safe within the confines of the building, at least I thought so. My father had to cut our four-day trip to Charlotte short, since a family emergency occurred. He allowed me to stay in the city for one more day, while he took the next flight out to make it back home as soon as possible. I was completely fine with that, and for the last day, I explored the city and searched for more housing options alone. When I got back to the hotel that night, I took some time to relax, watching TV, YouTube videos, and listening to music. I was pretty exhausted, and I turned off the lights and closed the blinds. Flopping down in bed with both my AirPods in, I spent the next couple minutes listening to music as I drifted to sleep. I woke up at around 3 a.m. to knocking on my door. I could only hear it because the music in my AirPods had stopped, as my playlist had reached its end. I wasn't sure what was happening or what I was hearing for a couple minutes, as I was still in a stupor after waking up. I took out my AirPods, trying to make out the noise that was coming from the door. Knock, 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 knock. I thought it was room service or hotel management, probably just checking up on me since my father, who booked the room, was gone. No, it couldn't have been. Who in their right mind would check up on someone in the middle of the night? Knock, 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 knock. Maybe it was someone who was locked out of their own room and thought my room was their own. But that seemed impossible as well. There was only 3 floors in this hotel. The person was now slamming their fist against the door now. I was scared now, and I could only hope that the person would get tired and move on after a couple more minutes. The knocking continued with occasional banging against the door and finagling of the door handle. I was terrified now, not just because of the persistence of the person trying to get into my room, but also because I heard absolutely nothing else from the door. There was no breathing despite the heavy slamming of the door, nor was there any word spoken. If it was room service, they would have announced it so. If it was someone who mistook my room for theirs, I was expecting some sort of dialogue like mom, dad, brother, sister, honey, but I heard absolutely nothing but the incessant knocking and banging of my hotel room door. Knock, 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 knock. For nearly an hour, the person wouldn't stop. Now, I wasn't even sure it was a real person. Any human would have moved on by now. Any human would have spoken some words by now. Any human would have taken a breath by now. I didn't want to make my way towards the door. to check on who the person was since there was a slit under the door that could have allowed someone from one side of the door to notice that there was someone on the other side. Instead, I hid behind the bed, hoping to God that this thing wouldn't get into my room and that someone would stop it. Knock, 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 knock. 5:10 I had reached my limit. I just wanted to go to bed. I just wanted to feel safe again. There seemed to be no end of the knocking or slamming or finagling. The person on the other side never paused, and I never had a feeling of respite, where I thought they would leave or take a couple minutes to rest. I wanted it to end, and I thought calling the police would do that. However, I still didn't want to reveal the fact that I was in the room, so I texted 911 that there was someone trying to get into my room. The cursed signal couldn't get through. My message would not send, and all I could do was look helplessly at the green bar trying to reach the end as the banging got louder and louder. But no matter how much I stared at the message, it would not go. I was at my wit's end, and I gave up on secrecy. I dialed 911, and the dispatcher immediately picked up the phone. She asked so many questions, many of which I couldn't even answer. I didn't know what the person looked like. I didn't know what the person wanted. All I knew was that I was stuck in this hotel in Charlotte with someone or something relentlessly knocking and banging at my door. I believe that as soon as I began speaking, the banging got dramatically louder. The person on the other side was now pounding and pounding, and I could imagine him or her just swinging her entire arm against the door, or kicking and kicking relentlessly at it. My voice was shaking and my eyes were watering, but I was still in my right mind and able to confirm my location with the dispatcher so she could send police my way. She ended the call, and the knocking and banging continued for a couple more minutes, but then it fell silent. I just kneeled there, behind the bed, shaking, waiting for both the knocking to return and for the police to come. After maybe 5 minutes of silence, I had the gall to stand up, and I walked towards the blinds, hoping to see police cruisers swerve into the cul-de-sac of the hotel. I waited for 5 more minutes, and the tension slowly dissipated as I saw the police pull up to the hotel. A minute later, I received a knock on the door, accompanied by an actual human voice. "Charlotte, police." That was the only knock that night that I was happy to hear. The police told me they'd searched the building and the surrounding area for any suspicious individuals. Unfortunately for both the police and me, there didn't seem to be any security cameras near my room, since I was on the far side of the hotel. Till this day, I have no clue who or what was knocking on my door, but I am so glad that it never got what it wanted. I was at a friend's house last week, and he told me a rather shocking story that could actually happen to anybody. It is indeed a true horror story, just not one in the supernatural sense, or a traditional true horror story as you may be used to. This story is about our justice system and how its one-size-fits-all protocol can quickly destroy an innocent person's life, especially when one least expects it. For my friend, it was a terrible nightmare that almost completely ruined both his professional life and his social life. One nice, particularly sunny afternoon, my friend Matt was walking along the sidewalk in an upscale, popular part of a shopping district in our small historic town, located on a main street, with his girlfriend. They were excitedly discussing a concert they had both attended that past weekend. As they were walking along, Matt noticed that a large pickup truck had just passed them up. Problem is that all 3 passengers, a man driving with a young teenage girl in the middle, and a woman about the man's age riding in the passenger seat were staring hard at the couple as they slowly passed them by. Matt simply dismissed it in his mind as his girlfriend gave him a puzzled look. It wasn't until the same truck slowly passed them again on the heavily trafficked street just a few minutes later, while still staring the couple down, that Matt began to truly question the current situation. His question was soon answered in an unfortunate way, as his girlfriend pointed out that the truck had stopped ahead, and the truck's occupants were speaking to a police officers in his car that was stopped on the curb just a few blocks up, and they were all now looking their way. It wasn't long until the occupants of the mysterious truck and the police officers were heading back down the crowded street towards Matt and his girlfriend. As Matt and his girlfriend waited for them to approach, their minds swirled with the possibilities of why they would be in any sort of trouble. We've all been there, you know. Like when you get called to the principal's office and you're not sure why. Or maybe when your parents wanted to have a talk with you and you were racking your brain, trying to figure out what exactly you did. So when the young girl and her parents from the mystery truck finally approached along with the police officers, Matt's mind was ablaze with questions. Matt was immediately pulled aside as 3 more police cars arrived on the scene and was told that the 15-year-old girl in the mystery truck was accusing him of entering her home, her bedroom, and molesting her. Matt was at a complete loss because he had never met this girl, and more importantly, he had never gone to her house and molested her. Matt was charged and released right there on a crowded downtown street, in front of everyone and his girlfriend that day. The events that followed proved to be quite difficult for Matt. His girlfriend, of course, knew that he had not done what he was accused of, as she had been with him that weekend when he was accused of the crime. Of course, Matt was able to secure an alibi, not only through his girlfriend's testimony that she was with him at that concert, but also by providing ticket stubs for the concert. Despite the solid alibi, the district attorney offered Matt a deal that required him to plead guilty to a crime he never committed. In addition, this deal required him to serve time and possibly become a registered sex offender and be paroled or placed on probation for the next 6 months. Matt's life was consumed with upcoming court hearings and deals offered by the district attorney that got worse and worse, with increasing sentences instead of getting better, with decreasing sentences. From that day forward, Matt's life became a nightmare, for he had no idea how all of this would turn out for him. His life and reputation, both as a citizen and a worker, were in great jeopardy. As the court date approached, Matt worried more and more. It didn't help that the DA's proposals were becoming more and more frightening. I'm not sure about this, but from my experience in criminal courts, the DA's sentences usually get better and lighter as the court date approaches, unless they are certain of your guilt. But poor Matt, who had no idea how he even got involved in this whole thing, was getting really scared. And, as it turned out, he had no idea of the reality of the situation at all. As it turned out, he was accused of entering the home of a 15-year-old girl and molesting her. By definition, the word molest means to approach and address someone aggressively. Matt knew only one thing. He had never done anything like that in his life, much less toward a teenage girl, and he certainly couldn't even understand what he was being accused of. You have to realize that in our county, the courts usually go the way they want to go because it's a small town and all that. So naturally, the day before jury selection, Matt's nerves were on edge and he was on edge. So he was shocked when, at the preliminary interview that takes place right before jury selection, the district attorney suddenly dropped all charges and dropped the case As you can imagine, this unexpected turn of events left Matt with a lot of unanswered questions. It wasn't until he spoke to his attorney that he got the answers. What the lawyer told him horrified and disgusted him. According to the lawyer, the teenage girl who had been accusing him all along had recanted her original statement. The lawyer told Matt that the girl had been changing her original version throughout the story, and even he only found out about it that day. You see, the 15-year-old girl, who was a complete stranger to Matt, was caught by her parents having her boyfriend sneak out to see her. Well, you get the picture. Apparently, the girl's boyfriend managed to get away without getting caught by her parents, because she soon accidentally accosted Matt while he was just strolling around downtown with his girlfriend, and she was able to make her parents and the police believe her story, leaving Matt responsible for a crime he never committed. After all this confusion, Matt's attorney concluded that since he was informed that the girl's story kept changing, he figured that the DA must have known that the girl was obviously lying and that no case had actually happened. So why would a professional pursue such accusations? You ask. Truth be told, my friend Matt and I were asking ourselves the same question. All we could come up with was the simple fact that district attorneys need wins in their cases. Maybe it's because they want a pay raise, or maybe they plan to run for judge one day, but I guess we'll never know. The point is that if this young girl had continued to change her statement that whole time, then why was this case still pursued so aggressively, with the offers from the district attorney getting more and more intimidating instead of better for Matt? Those questions and then some still swirl around in Matt's mind to this very day, whenever he tells this story. But it's pretty clear that the district attorney in that case really wanted or needed Matt to plead guilty, just so that she could have her win. Apologies for any bad writing, as I am typing this on my phone. I'll get straight into the meat and potatoes. When I was younger, my grandpa lived in the foothills of Appalachia. Behind his house laid a thick woods that went for miles. I was probably between 8 to 10 years old at the time, and was allowed no further than a couple of yards out into the woods. One night I had decided to venture in by myself. My family was out on the deck having a fire eating food, and for whatever reason I had decided to wander off. By this point, the sun was almost completely vacant from the horizon, and there was generally low visibility in the woods. So I started walking and night seemed to fall really quickly, which made sense because when I walked into the woods, the sun was almost fully set, but as a kid it still creeped me out. I remember being able to still see the fire in the backyard patio when I turned my head back around to continue walking. I was really excited because I was never allowed to walk that far and I had all of the freedom in the world. I vividly remember getting the chills, and I had that feeling you get when something big is near you, like a bear or something. Not a malevolent presence, just something big. As I continue walking, directly in my ear, I heard my mother's voice say my name. I frowned, because I knew my mom was nowhere near me, so I just kept walking, and as I walked my mother's voice just continued being spoken into my ear, the exact same tone, pronunciation, and volume, over and over again. I continued to walk and that large, looking presence quickly began to feel almost angry or just bad. It scared the shit out of me, and still makes me uncomfortable looking back. Eventually I remember getting behind a tree and curling up until my mother's voice went away. I got up after what I can only describe as if the air lost 1,000,000 pounds. I booked it back to my grandpa's house and ran into my room. I didn't sleep that night or any night for a couple of weeks after that. My next story is a lot more recent and a lot shorter. About 2 years ago, a new neighbor moved in. He is a military veteran who fought in Iraq. I don't quite know what his job was called, but the concept is he would literally steamroll houses or something along the lines of running over houses with people in them or not. A very gruesome thought, to say the least. Since he is still involved with the army in some way, he is not home very frequently, but when he is, very strange things happen. My most notable encounter with a ghost was when I was washing dishes in the kitchen, and I had seen something white dart across my living room in front of me. As my living room is directly across from my kitchen sink, I was more confused than creeped out, and tried to rationalize it but remained a little creeped. After I finished everything up, I went upstairs to my room, and when I walked in my room, when I turned the corner to face my bed, a man in something like white traditional Middle Eastern attire, with a long gray divided by black beard, thick eyebrows, and black eyes looked at me. I literally jumped, and when I blinked, he was gone. He just looked at me blankly, and he scared the crap out of me. My next encounter was a lot more aggressive. It was the middle of the night, and I was laying in my bed. I suffer from chronic migraines, and if you have them, you know that sometimes, when you try to sleep or close your eyes, your head gets worse. As I'm laying just looking around at my ceiling, I see what looks like somebody standing, but almost not even there, if that makes any sense. Like, if I only saw the outline of a person there but no actual body. I tried to fall asleep, but my head was continuing to bother me. So I opened my eyes, and I was met with a woman screaming at me in complete gibberish. She was wearing similar clothes to my other encounter. I got up and ran out of my house into the street. Once I caught my breath, I walked back in and Saturday in my living room until the next morning. That's all for my encounters. I was scrolling this subreddit and figured now would be a better time than ever to share my stories. I hope you enjoyed them. P.S. I have moved out of state since those two stories took place.